I suppose
There's Tim.
there he is. He's on his way in.
I, I was wrestling trying to get up in here. I'm in here.
Yeah, you made it. All
Yeah.
right. It's great having you both here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you for
Great
having
to
us.
be here. Thank you for having
Absolutely.
us.
And I wrote you a big long email about what we're up to, but I think in the interest of time and just because I have both of you here and I think kind of the best place to start is maybe how you guys know each other and how you met and why you decided to form the group that Angela was telling me about.
Uh, I guess you can call it, I don't know, situational happenstance or something like that. I have a friend. I have a friend who, when I was incarcerated, uh, got free at an amazing moment. He wasn't supposed to get free. Uh, the board of, like the releasing board in California, told him to come back in 8 years.
Okay.
And then they called him back about 6 months later and said, "We made a mistake. You could go home right now."
Wow.
So that's Jabbar. His name is Jabbar Shroud. So he gets free, and he is connected to 10, and 10 is like one of our Asian brothers who was incarcerated with us. He was on the same what we call tier as Jabbar and I when we were in prison, and Jabbar connected with a professor. What's the professor's name?
Professor's name,
Sarah.
what's it?
What's her name? Sarah. And you got to do the last name.
Oh, are you talking about Farah?
Sarah. Yeah.
Farah?
The, come on now,
Farah? Huh?
bro. You got to help me out.
Farad?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a professor at the Riverside University, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And she
Yes.
was doing an writing a story about individuals who utilize yoga in prison as a form of meditation and how to relax. And she was connected with Jabbar Shroud, and Jabbar mentioned me because that was one of the anti-prison pro keep me calm meditating things that what I done. So he mentioned me, and we put together like a conference at a library or a panel at a library in Echo Park. Well, it'll be me, Tien, and Billy. And that, well, prior to, the professor that contacted me and like, "Oh, I want to put you on this with a guy named Billy." And I have been having like brief conversations with Billy through the Tien and Jabbar connection, but I hadn't made the association that this was the Billy that I was already talking to about. And then once I remembered, I was like, "Oh, okay. I've been talking to him. I just got finished meeting with him about a week ago, trying to develop like an API, like an organization I work for, LA Voice, like the diversity piece, because we weren't strong in like API folks at the table. So I was trying to pull Billy into the table. We realized it was the same portion. And then we had the connection to Tien, because Tien and Billy go back to childhood, you know, and prison, and immigration detention centers once they got released from prison. And the one thing that we realized that we all have in common is that being impacted by the injustices and inequities that exist in the U.S., but specifically to us in California in the criminal justice system. So,
Gotcha.
you know, just having that connection, we've been bonded, we've been bros ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to add to Tim's story, yeah, I think it was just, our path was meant to cross, regardless, right? Yeah, through our panel together and with Tin. And I think, once we got talking, right, and I think we realized that we share a lot of common views as far as wanting to, I guess, get more involved with diverse uh, diverse community, and to share that common thinking of bringing everybody together instead of having the mentality of like just in prison. It's like they always enforce that division mentality on us, right? So out here, I realized that in order to break free from the past, we have to move forward with the future, and that includes getting involved with communities of diverse background also. So to come together to fight the injustice system. So that once once we discussed that, it was like we share the same view.
That's great. So inside the system, as you were saying, Billy, there is a push systematically to divide by race, by ethnicity. So,
Yeah.
so that's existing. And so when you get to the outside, what does it feel like? How does it feel different? I mean, what's the push? Is there still a push, or do things feel freer?
I think I think it's freer. I mean, I I think that, well, I went through a transitional house.
Mm-hmm.
So in the house, this was already diverse culture living in those housing. So for me, it was like, and I think before I even got out, my thought process already uh, I guess changed to a view of wanting to connect with other people more versus just staying within my own culture, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, coming out, I think definitely the freedom to interact with whoever I feel like it, and also this, yeah, there's no push to um, there's no racial I guess, yeah, there's no push for racial boundaries. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel that for me, I just want to make it attempt to, or just thrive towards uh, being involved, right, as much as I can with communities of diverse background. So
Yeah, it sounds personal, and that's what it sounds like for you too, Tim. It just sounds like
For me, my journey to it is a little different because of how I navigated my prison experience. Uh, you have to have, even if they are below the surface relationships with other races, you have to be connected and have below the surface relationships with other races for all the right reasons as well as all the wrong reasons. So anytime, though the systems and institutions are set up to force like the racial separation, sometimes there are disagreements and conversations that need to be had when there's tension. If there's not somebody that has a pre-established relationships that can reach out and say, hey, they're not talking and this is what's going to happen if they don't talk. Let me and you talk though. So let's figure out like a conflict resolution scheme because this doesn't need to happen. So the power of diverse communication in those relationships to me have always been there, and that's for the right reason. One of the wrong reasons is the California Department of Corrections at one time a phone call cost like 15 cents. I mean $15 for 5 minutes. So you're on the wall phone calling your people. You having phone bills that's $600 and $700 a month, and placing that kind of burden like on your folks is just terrible. So at the introduction of cell phones in prison, you have to have those interconnected relationships because sometimes individuals who look like you aren't the ones with the phones.
yeah.
And if you are, I mean, just to be an extreme, so it might be somebody white who's got the phones, or somebody Hispanic who got the phones, or somebody Asians who got the phones. And then if you don't have that relationship, then guess what? You don't get to communicate with your people. You don't get that life source that's really needed. Though it's illegal, that component right there, for most from the early 2000s all the way up till 2015 when I gained my freedom, that was like one of the things that having those like diverse relationships put me in a position that I was able to maintain my sense of connection with like the streets until I got there.
Yeah. So it sounds like both of you, yeah, at some point or another, you're trying to create kind of informal relationships with
Yeah.
people.
Uh-huh.
And now you're on the outside. You've had a couple of years, as I understand, on the outside,
Yeah.
and you're now forming more. It sounds like to me, you've got these different groups you're forming. Now you've got something formal. It's its own nonprofit, it's its own organization, and but it sounds like it's doing the same thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, or organizationally, like we're part of two different organizations. Billy is part of like API Rise, and I'm part of LA Voice. And LA Voice is it's faith-based organizing. So our relationships and organizing is done within church congregations, and there are a lot of them. We have relationships with like 70 congregations throughout LA, and the diversity piece is there also. So I attach myself to this kind of organizational organizing, for one, for the faith-based component, because I've been an individual that maybe not necessarily attached to the religious stuff. And for the diversity, and to credential the fact that I wasn't going to be the person in this walk, in this journey and freedom that I was in my previous incarnation. Yeah. And in being this way and in doing that, so it's comfortable for me to sit across the table now for somebody that doesn't look like me, because I got the skill set to do it when I was trying to get free, when it was extremely difficult, when it was extremely uncomfortable, and sometimes it could have possibly been life-threatening. So to be able to do it now and to have a relationship with somebody like Billy, or somebody like our friend Tin, or Angela, or Diane, or some of the folks who are at the table with us, is just a continuation and the validation that the journey is on point. That this is how things are supposed to be, and we are given the opportunity or the blessing to try to make change for our folks in a positive way and try to be the best example of.
Yeah, do you want to add to that, Billy?
Yeah, I think for my organization, API Rise, it's a little bit different approach, because our organization exists to support and provide voice and empower individuals who are currently and formerly incarcerated API communities to I guess just a sense of belonging for the community. We feel that in our culture, right, the stigma and the shame has always been so heavy amongst our culture. So our organizations is there, just to help ease that. I guess you would say help empower, right, and help individuals who are coming out to just know that there's a place for them, right? But we're not secluded just to API. This is we realize that a lot of programs and doesn't include the API population, or sometimes even amongst ourselves, the API population doesn't go seek other communities, due to either culture difference, or even language barrier, right? So, but I think in that space, we also encourage others to be involved with other communities also, and to just in their journey to transition or to readjust, right? To be to interact, right? To interact and have that network skills, to succeed in life also. Me personally, I deal with a lot of, well, myself, I deal with immigration issue. So I encountered a couple of those incidents where I was detained,
Yeah.
and coming back out, I feel like there should be someone to tell the stories of how it is, how is it to feel to be released, then to be detained again, right? And to be really treated as a product, but not as a human being in the detention system, right? So my advocacy work is surrounding anti-deportations,
Hmm.
and but I realized that the immigration issue is it's not just the API issue, but it's issues of the community. Because when I went there the second time, there was people of all color, brown, white, black, Asians, right? So this is like a community issue, and we need to humanize people, right, and not condemn them for life for something that happened years ago, and be torn away from the family. So, but to just to bring it all in, like for me, I just realized that it's crucial, right, to have community support, and yeah, and just part of that is just go out there and being involved, more, and interact with you know people that share similar mindset, right? Similar
Yeah.
beliefs as I do.
So I was talking with Angela about this in our talk. I work in nonprofits and I do fundraising and try to get funds for anything. I've done, yeah, right. Yeah. I just all kinds of initiatives. And so, yeah, how do you bring that message to the community? Because I worked in the welfare system for a little bit, and I worked with guys from a halfway house who were then trying to transition out, and just getting the message out to the community partners that, like, these are people you can hire, for jobs. Like, these guys want to work, they want to be out there, they want to try to get out of their house, the halfway house, like whatever. So how do you get that message to people in a way that resonates? Because you guys are so based in the justice system and trying to rehabilitate and heal and so on.
Um, I think for me, it's just going to different events, and just sharing my story, right, and allowing people to see, like, um, I'm a person, and as someone that was involved in the justice system, I paid my I did my time, pay my debt to society, and it's wrong to punish me again, or someone in similar situation that I am, right? So I think it's just storytelling, sharing my journey with other people, and also attending rallies to bring that awareness, and everywhere I go, I try to educate people, and to um, I guess just to raise the issue, so that they could be aware of our immigration system is flawed, right, and needs reform. But meanwhile, the people that are affected by um, are people that just like any other parolees want to come out and have a second opportunity, right, to succeed in life. So basically that's the message that I relate to people, and to share my personal stories, and yeah, and then educate people on the story of immigrant refugees, so.
Great. Yeah, Tim, I know your focus is related with LA Voice, and I read a little bit about the organization doing some advocacy work and even policy, making phone calls, that type of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, for me, I have this slogan that moves in my head all the time, and it's nothing about us without us. So anytime there's a conversation had about individuals who are justice system impacted or formerly incarcerated, and I have the opportunity to sit at the table, I'm there, and I make it known that individuals who have made that journey, and once they come back, they deserve, the opportunity to position themselves in good wage earning jobs, and to have whatever needs that they may have met with a degree of like equality like everyone else, that it should not be a stigma attached to an individual making a mistake, which is having a consequential contact with law enforcement is a mistake. So one of the analogies I use often is you want individuals to identify themselves as formerly incarcerated, but in this room, since 50% of relationships or marriages end up in divorce, there's 50% of these people in this room that are formerly married. So if it had that on a job application, or if you were held accountable because you couldn't sustain a relationship, how would you like that? So what makes you think that we like it, that we always have to identify ourselves as formerly? We deserve the same position for that not to be a stigma that follows us around everywhere we go, because at one point in our life, we made a mistake. Everybody has, the ability to change and extend an individual that understanding until you realize that they haven't. And in the job space, some of the policy that I've been involved is in the city and county of LA is this thing called ban the box, which pretty much eliminates the ability for an employer to ask you, have you been convicted of a felony on a job application, and can only be done so when the job is offered, and it has to be conditional to the job you're getting. So if you're a car thief, you probably won't be able to get a job at a car lot, but that shouldn't stop you from working at a grocery store.
Yeah.
So that is like one of the things that I was involved in like Prop 57, which is a proposition that happened in 2016, which eliminated what's called direct file in California, which the 94 crime bill gave DAs in California the arbitrary decision-making hammer to try a person as young as 14 years old as an adult and send them to adult prison.
Wow.
So the prisons Billy and I were in started to look like high schools.
Yeah, wow.
Like individuals who weren't even old enough to have hair on their face with the consistent, I got 50 years to this and 35 years to that and 40 years to that, primarily because of that system making matrix that prosecutors have. So some of the outreach that I was able to do with a team of 99.9% formerly incarcerated individuals was get that message out and make sure that it was enough voters to go to the poll and make sure that ability for legislators for prosecutors was suspended. Mm-hmm. And LA Voice is always involved in some degree of action, some degree of campaign support, some degree of legislative support. So whenever that's done, we usually put together teams that are formerly incarcerated individuals, system impacted individuals. It's a requisite that for me, you have to have been in some degree of trouble, because I know you need help. And once you understand the issues and you have skin in the game, and you can actually participate in changing a system that has impacted you probably most of your life, chances are you're gonna be your best self. And some of those best selves have helped change some of the laws in California for the better that have helped individuals like me and Billy come home.
Yeah. That is fascinating. I'm out here all the way out in Pennsylvania, and we have our own issues out here. And for instance, in Philly, when I was working there was they were giving out an incentive. Like, I think you got cash if you hired a formerly incarcerated person, and nobody took it. Like I am, I've got all these guys on my case list who I'm trying to find them jobs, and it was like nobody would even take it. So we were trying to do outreach and work with the mayor's office even to find people work, and it was so hard. But so that is some fascinating stuff. And I applaud it. And I'm going to shout out both your organizations. I'm going to make sure to do that for you, because it's important stuff. And if I can change gears a little bit, now we're seeing a real challenge to the justice system from current events and everything going on and people in the street. Where do you think that conversation brings your organizations because you're both actively thinking about justice, you're thinking about this system all the time. It's one of your passions.
Yeah. You wanna go first, Billy, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Well, with a smile on my face, I'll say that LA Voice is prolific in every budget conversation that's taking place uh, in LA on the city level, county level, and some on the state level. We are involved in the conversation trying to make sure that some of the funding that's being directed in whatever direction is helpful to those who need it most.
Mm.
That is, in recognition of communities who have been starved of resources for far too long, but are those communities that are impacted the most. That the eye is on institution change,
Mm.
starting from policy to system to the totality of, because there's an understanding that if you don't change the institution and the culture and the systems remain, then individuals are going to continue to do the things that they do. We're fighting for a defunding or redirecting of, I mean, these millions of dollars that the law enforcement agencies have sucked out of city and county budgets under the banner of public safety and protect and serve. But if they're keeping our public safe, why have they shot or killed over 600 people in the last 10 years? We're trying to keep each other safe from them at this point. No, when your house is on fire and the fire department, who are also public safety officials, come to put the fire out, you tend to welcome them. But oftentimes there are things that take place and you have to pick up the phone and call the police, and you are scared yourself of what might actually happen. And that environment of fear is what has to be dealt with. So when it comes to policy, when it comes to system, when it comes to institutional change, and when it comes to budgets, LA Voice is at the table lending their voice, their information, their power, and their people to the issue. But LA Voice is not a singular organization. Mm-hmm. It's one of like 14 organizations that are in a federation that make up Pico, California.
Okay.
And Pico is one of about 12 other organizations around the state and around the country that create Faith in Action, which is a national, international faith-based organizing body. So though you may see the corner of what LA Voice is actually connected to this larger body of organizing that's organizing like around the country and in some other countries. I do believe that there's a version of Faith in Action in Philly.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think for me, API Rise is a fairly new organization, so we don't have the budget or the capacity to do a lot of the work on ground. Everybody that's involved is all strictly on a voluntary basis. Mm-hmm. However, we do continue to advocate for the release of people that are vulnerable to COVID-19, people such as, in the detention center where they really don't have any form of protection, right? If for the COVID-19 outbreak. So I think last month or a couple months ago, we did a video sharing our stories of what it was like to be in detention, what it's like to be in the jail and in the prison environment where we really are defenseless towards the COVID-19 outbreak. And so I think just sharing that to the social media, right, bring awareness and I guess forcing the politicians to take action to put pressure on the CDC system to release people, right? Even the detention center to release people, because it's cruel and unusual punishment for them to be in an environment where they can't get help. And, they are detained, but they're not sentenced to death. So for them to be any longer and be exposed to it is a death sentence. So we try to well, our purpose of video is just to put pressure. And in addition, API Rise also is a co-sponsor with several other API organizations. It's called the Vision Act, and that act will stop the transfer of prisoners that are released. So it will stop the transfer of state prisoners to ICE detention. So instead of them getting hand over to ICE when they release, they actually have an opportunity to at least be with the family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not do the work for ICE for them. So if ICE want to get them, ICE will have to do the job. But our the bill is just to say, look, release these people when they're able to release, and don't turn them over to ICE. So that's practically what the bill is about. And it's not only affecting the API population, but also Latinos, right? Anybody that's facing ICE hold, right? The bill will help them. So that's we haven't got the stat yet, but if you work the stat, that's maybe 5 out of 15 people that are released will face ICE detention. So yeah.
Wow. So those are all great things to be thinking about. And kind of want to think about the this. I don't know. I don't see this issue going anywhere about this conflict and the back and forth between folks in the state and the justice system. So I suppose, in turning to the diversity question and you guys working together, LA has its history. That's what this podcast is going to be primarily be about. And one of the things that just seemed really powerful to me and why I was interested to talk to you guys, beyond hearing your story and what you're working on now, is the power of community organizations when the conflict breaks out, and how important it was. And there was a sort of a Black Korean alliance that was operating, and it sounded like it was one guy in 92. One guy in his house, had his little group, and he was trying to work these things out. Do you see the connections that you're making now with between you guys and that round table of people you had talked about, including the professor at Riverside and everything? Do you see this as being a way to avert any conflict in the future, given history?
I think what it is, it's a piece of a larger effort that folks are engaging in to keep the conflict from growing. Like the video that really sparked this, that was no pun intended, but it's good PR. That was a tinderbox for what started what we're doing. We recognize it as the fire starter, that something like this could create major confusion if put in the wrong hands, but at the same time, something like this create major opportunity for folks to sit at the table and to put the elephant in the room on the table and like, look, this is what this has come to.
Yeah.
Are we really having these conversations? This is really something necessary. And can we, in our edge of it, start to sit down and have conversations? And even if it's confined to just us, then the lives that we save, the lives that we empower will be those across the table. But it's our responsibility to do that if we care for each other. And if we do a good enough job, someone will see what we're doing, and the volume of the voice of what we're doing, our effort, will be carried forward by others. And that's all we could hope for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see this as it's a community effort, and I think that for us, like just having that relationship, right, with myself and Tim, and we were previously in a cohort called Peacemaker, and I think it was just like it just flows, right? It's just naturally like, hey, here's a problem. What can us as Peacemaker do about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that it doesn't escalate into something threatening, right? But instead provide like what can we do to make this into a positive spin, right? Instead
Yeah.
of instead of feeding to the negative. Um, so yeah, with myself and Tim, when I reached out to Tim, and basically automatically we identified the same person, which is Diane, that could help, because Diane is a Asian American woman that's been around communities of diverse cultures, and with her experience and her knowledge, right, we came together and see like, all right, who in our circle can we invite for this conversation
Mhm.
to I guess conversation about our history together, conversation about healing, and conversation about moving forward as collective community, and healing others too along the way. So it's just yeah, I think for us, it's just it just comes naturally, like this is something that we have to do, right? Take action on. So
So I'm going to ask you the tough question then, because you already asked it yourself just now, which is what can you do to prevent a conflict, or like what steps can you take to prevent a conflict before it starts? Is there a rule book we can have out there and say, all right, if things are getting bad, here's what we do? It's kind of a tough
um,
question.
I think in a case like this is I think with the experience that we have, right, just that we've been through, and not wanting to see any more conflict or tension, but wanting to unite in peace. Um, for me, it's I think the crucial part is drawing everybody together, right, to have a
Mhm.
conversation, to um, I guess you could, I don't know about, like a rule book, but it's just through my experience and to my instinct is to say, hey, I have to reach out to somebody, right, that can solve this problem with me, right?
Mhm.
And that involves a collective effort. Not, I know that I can't tackle it alone.
Okay.
And I know that, this needs a community effort. It needs, it needs a collective effort to, you know, to, yeah, to move forward. How can we help heal our community, right?
Yeah.
Instead of, how can we put out the flames, or how can we, de-escalate any tension? And the only way, we come to realize is through like share stories, to histories, to building that understanding,
Mhm.
and that will itself lead towards healing also.
Yeah.
I
Is
think
that, yeah.
well, there's no simple solution on
Mhm.
how to cause conflict. I mean, how to prevent the conflict, but the the easiest path to it is perspective and perception.
Hmm.
If you take the moment to see from somebody else's perspective, you might glean an understanding of why. Because when I first like saw the video, there's a immediate reaction is like anger, like, oh, what is this? But when you engage a degree of perspective and you think why, anytime, and it doesn't matter who you are, what color your skin is, what your heart looks like. Anytime you think there's a degree of harm being done to somebody you're in relationship with, anger arises
Hmm.
immediately, and your emotions are triggered. But if you can take a moment to take a deep breath when possible,
Yeah.
and ask yourself why. What is this other person's perspective? If their perspective is in a lane of justification, then there's a degree of communication that that can take place. But if their perspective is they just have a dark heart and don't care, and your anger is justified, then it's like, you know, there's really no place that you can go and nothing you can do but respond the way you respond. But if you engage a degree of perspective and see that that person is operating from an emotional standpoint, from a heartfelt standpoint, and you're willing to engage in conversation, it can solve, you know, it can keep a whole bunch of stuff from happening that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim used the word, but what you just said, and then Billy, going back to what you said about instinct, it's interesting. You're both using like kind of an emotional language here, where it's like the emotions are running high in that moment, and
Mm-hmm.
you step back, and I guess, are you saying you're using? Is it logic? Is it what are you using instead of that kind of like that front emotion, right?
Yeah,
What
I mean,
else?
you're saying it. It's like it's a self-awareness and it's emotional intelligence, and it's knowing when you're emotionally triggered, because unfortunately a lot of folks don't know when they're emotionally triggered. But I mean, we know because of where we've been, what we've been through, the work that we've done on ourselves, that sometimes that we're triggered like emotionally, and that's the time when you're supposed to step back and not step forward, because when you step forward as an emotional reaction, it tends to get you in trouble.
Yeah.
But when you step back and you have that thought bubble pop up over your head, and you go, "Oh, okay, I did that, or that happened, and my feelings may have been hurt. I may have felt disrespected, or whatever that is. So there's really no reason to act other than in a manner to extend understanding. Like, I understand your perspective, but can we talk? Does this have to be anything but that? At the end of the day, communication is the answer to most things, not everything, but good communication is the answer to most things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
I agree.
You're with that. Yeah, that's what it seems to be. I mean, there was a there was a guy who said that war is politics by another means. So that's when the talking runs out, that seems to be when things get started.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're absolutely right, Tim. With Tinderbox, I'm studying conflicts, right? I'm studying when things go really bad. But what's happening with this podcast with the riots in '92 is I'm starting to learn that there's the aftermath, and then looking at what's being built up and what structures are being built up to prevent those things from happening again, are just as important as the things happening
Yeah,
themselves.
definitely.
So how would you guys say, I don't want to take too much of your time because we're coming up on an hour. How would you guys say, yeah, what structures can you put together? Is it the community groups? Is it politics? What kind of structures could be made to sort of to ease the way? And things, with and keeping in mind things are never going to be completely perfect, but how do you ease things for as many people as possible?
Um, yeah, I think definitely building through communities. I think, continue to continue to build that bond to communities, right? And I mean, politics is I don't know, we don't trust politics. um, I think that it's people power, right? Like, you know, continue to educate one another, continue to build that bond, and and doing so, right? We hope that it'll be a culture trend, right? Like, we start here and hopefully express out, and that's, for me, that's the hope. Is it has to start somewhere, and if we build, I mean, if we continue, and we are sincere in our effort to unite communities, um, and I think, even if it's only like 50 people that are impacted, we're still impacting 50 people, 50 lives, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely strongly lean towards community effort.
Okay.
And I'll align myself with Billy. With it is going to take the communities and relationships to make the kind of change we want, but it's also a political element. And I'm a civic engagement, voters' rights, voter education, voter registration person. So for me, it's a point that as communities, we need to realize that politicians are employees. They do not tell us what to do. We tell them what to do. When they're in campaign session, that is a job interview. Nobody hires an employee and then let them tell you what to do. There's been that's why words and communication is so important. Somewhere somebody tweaks something and they convince people to believe that there's a difference between politics and community. There aren't. The politicians are supposed to represent and reflect the community, and if they don't, then they shouldn't be in the positions that they're in. And it is a nonpartisan method, but I mean that's just the truth. And our political representation has to look like us. It has to represent us. And when you have issues like this that needs to be addressed, they need to be aware, and they need to create space. They need to create resources. They need to create communication vehicles to get in front of this and not let like a rogue media outlet get a hold to a conflict like this and fan the flames of and make it seem like it's more than it is when it's just really a small incident. Take the good thing that we're doing, something like the conversations we're having, and light the fire under that and share that information so others can be aware that everybody's not just sitting around saying what's gonna happen. There are groups, small groups, large groups, and larger groups having these same conversations because we don't want to see this kind of conflict. We're already in a war against ignorance, and we aren't winning the battle right now. You can look at the complexion of the country, not the skin complexion, but just the complexion in terms of the multitude of issues. And we're a wounded society. Mm-hmm. We are hurting right now. We don't need to hurt any more than what's going on right now. And it's beholden to all of us, and it's our responsibility to realize that we're all responsible for each other. If I engage in a bad act, the impact of it might indirectly influence the course of your life. And a lot of us, though that's a philosophical statement, a lot of us don't understand that the things we are, the things that we do impact people that we may never see or never know. But if we become conscientious of our actions and engage a degree of perception and perspective. Perception, because what you see is what you think happened, whether that's what's happening or not. What you see is what you think happened. Mm. And like that perspective, like why did this individual talk shit to me? Or why did this individual look at me a particular way? Or why did this person say that? Like, engage the perspective. If it's a male, he could have had a bad day. If it's a female, she could be having a bad hair day. Whatever the reason is, if you don't know what's the backstory behind it and there's a justification, you can't act with it.
Yeah.
For it or against it, but you can't act with it accordingly.
Yeah. I know that LA Voice has a faith component.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was talking with Angela, it's straight into the spiritual. We were talking about that. That seems to be another component of this is, and that's a community group and a community organization part of it. But yeah, I have to ask two questions. One, how do you know Angela? And then two, yeah, what is that other component as well, that spiritual component? How does it work with you guys?
I can be quick with that. I know Angela through Diane Ugea. Diane brought Angela to our table because, Angela has a beautiful spirit. She has an enormous heart for this. And that's the kind of love we need to see across the table when we're having these conversations, because sometimes it's not all love. And like for the spiritual component, for me is everything happens for a reason. You just have to figure out what the reason is and get in that lane. once you identify yourself with that course, then you're in line with, like, that universal energy that controls everything and gives it the proper rhythm, the proper cycle, that, like your heartbeat. Your heart beats a particular way because that's the way it's supposed to. And when you lean into that spiritual rhythm, then that's where your peace of mind, your calm, your joy can be found.
Very good.
Okay. For me, Angela has been involved with API Rise from the beginning, and
Okay.
when I got out, I got involved with API Rise and met her a couple of times, her and her partner Tutu. But I think it's not until that I actually accepted her invitation to sit on Wednesday that we actually build a I consider her my mentor, right? So we built that mentorship. I built the mentorship connection with her,
Yeah.
and then and then when I got detained the second time, she was like so very supportive, and so I guess throughout the year we just continue to build on that relationship, right? That bond, and I go to her for advice, her and her partner Tutu, and as far as spiritual, in I 5 years before I got released, I practiced meditation, sit, and I think that in during the course of my journey, I realized the major teaching is compassion, right?
Hmm.
And I think in Buddha's teaching is his goal was to ease the suffering of all sentient beings. So I think in my practice, as far as in the spiritual aspect of it, is it's the same. It's to practice compassion and and to ease suffering. If I see people suffering, I um, it doesn't sit well because I suffer also, and I think when you go into deeper into the teaching of Buddhism and the whole teaching of emptiness, where everything's not empty, everything's connected, right? So when you look at everything's connected, it's like we are all connected, as human beings, and it's sad to see that we are divided, right, between racial, between beliefs, um, Democrat, Republican, whatever. We're constantly divided, So um, it's just for me, it's just when I see others suffer, right, I want to help, right? So that brings me to uh, doing what I can to help others.
That's great. That's a great one. So I guess we got 5 minutes left in my planned hour. Is there any last words you guys wanted to leave with this? Something, any last thoughts?
There's some things that are going on in the country right now that have put a spotlight on certain behaviors, certain inequities and injustices. My last word is, let's turn this moment into a movement.
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, my last word is having been through conflicts and seeing a lot of conflicts, but I also saw the side of solidarity, of unity, right? And it's beautiful when we all come together as one, right? And I feel that together, right, we can tackle any issue together. Whether it's inequality, whether it's racism, right? Whether it's poverty, right? I think I believe in the power of unity. So
Very good. So my plan was I recorded this and then I was going to put the whole thing out there to folks if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
And then what I was going to do for the podcast is probably chop it up, take some sound bites out, and then and work it into it. Work it into especially my lessons on what the heck do you do? Here we are 30 years later. Now what do we do? So So I appreciate it, gentlemen. I mean, it's been awesome.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate the work that you do, and just spreading the good vibe.
Yeah.
You say you do fundraising. I'll probably contact you. There might be something there you can help me out down this way.
Hey,
Absolutely.
I'm a grant writer by trade, so
y'all definitely.
you send me a grant and we'll get writing.
You heard that, Billy?
Awesome.
Right?
API Rise needs a lot of grant, right?
I know. It's always a thing, but yeah, I appreciate the time, gentlemen. It's
Thank
been
you, Will.
yeah.
Hope we
So
can do
long
it
now.
again.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Enjoy
definitely.
your weekend. Be safe. Be healthy.
Absolutely.
Be safe.
You as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.